everybody, it's Tommy and welcome back to my channel. Today we have a very long video, so I would suggest you get comfy if you plan on staying for the duration of this entire video. I haven't really done a build this year other than Polly Pocket, and we are almost all the way through January, so I'm not really sure what's going on with me, but I decided it's probably time to build some stuff. And you guys know I'm always trying to think outside of the box, and I had this series planned, or this idea that I was going to go with around Christmas time that didn't really work out. I didn't think at the time that it actually fit, and I'm not going to tell you guys what it was because I might still choose to do it at some point or another, and it kind of also has to do with a video that's going to be coming out later this week. But I've been wanting to do something very random. And you guys know that I build my Polly Pocket houses. Actually, if you don't know, I have recreated many Polly Pocket houses, and I just was kind of in this toys market and trying to think of more things that I could do with toys and The Sims that would be kind of random. And I thought of Legos. So my idea initially was to go in and build a Sims 4 house built out of like Legos and kind of just give it the illusion that there is some sort of Lego design going on for the house. And it was really not working out. I still may attempt it in a different way later down the line, but it just wasn't working out. So I was doing all this research online and Googling photos as I usually do, and I came across this house. So this is called the Lego house, and as far as I know, or from what information I could get, it's located in, I believe, Denmark. And it appears to me to be some kind of a Lego museum or some kind of a Lego structure that they put all sorts of really cool Lego designs on the inside. And the only photos that I could really find from the inside were like gigantic dinosaurs made out of Legos. So it's kind of a museum. It's kind of also supposed to have this very interesting architecture that really is what made me want to do this build. I saw it and it just had all these blocks that were different colors stacked on top of one another in a very like particular way that was so visually interesting. And I was like, I have to build this. As soon as I saw it, I knew I have to build this. So here we are. And I built this as a museum, but more so like a regular Sims museum. So if you're looking for a new museum lot, or you just so happen to be wanting to replace some of the ones in game, I think that this is a really good new alternative. It's so interesting and like just totally outside of the box, which you guys know I love to do. So here we are. And it has like the main structure is just all of these boxes stacked on top of one another. And I'm going off of many photos of reference trying to color match all of the ceiling tiles, because each tile on the ceiling or each box had its own color. And a lot of the colors were in the same area. So like all of the blue blocks were on one corner of the building, all of the greens together, but they were each a different shade. And this made me realize how much The Sims 4 is lacking in like basic color swatches or just like plain normal color swatches, because the other thing I was trying to avoid was using any kind of ceiling tile. Well, not ceiling tile. It is on the ceiling, but we're actually using floor tile. I was trying to avoid any kind of floor tile with texture. So carpets were out, most tiles were out, anything that had like cement or some kind of gloss to it was probably out, within reason, because I did actually end up having to use some of the more textured floor paints. And I really do wish that we just had like a standard paint floor color with like a billion swatches that is like kind of unmarked or almost cement, just not really distinguishable with like any textures or anything like that. So I had a really hard time trying to find colors that were matching the photos that I was seeing, and also just trying to find, you know, like textureless colors. And it didn't totally work out, but I still think that all of the colors that I picked and all of the floor tiles that I picked work until we got to yellow. So there are no plain yellow swatches in the game in like that vibrant yellow, like knock you out of the park kind of color. And I got so furious at this point in the game that The Sims could be out for this long. Like The Sims 4 could be out for this long. And we have yet to receive a plain yellow flooring. That actually blows my mind. And I could go into it in this video about like all of the reasons why I don't think that that's okay. But I actually decided that I'm going to make an entire video about it, because the more that like stemmed an entire thought process in my head. So mentally, while I'm building this, I'm starting to ramble in my head about things that are just outrageous, I guess, is the best word to use at this point with the age of The Sims 4, and things that are missing that shouldn't be missing anymore. And it's kind of inexcusable in a lot of ways. But I'm going to make an entire video about it. And it's probably going to come across a little bit harsh, but I'm going to try to do it in the most polite way possible. And I don't know. We'll talk about that more in the actual video, because I mean no ill will or bad intentions with that. But there are some things when I was doing this build that I noticed we are missing from the game, and I just want to make a video about it. So we're going to talk about that at a different time. But yeah, and I also, really important, I want to mention that oftentimes when I do a build in The Sims 4, if I come up with an idea, I always try to do research to see if somebody else has done this idea, because I don't think it's fair if you don't do that, and just try to kind of claim that something is your own. And even if you thought of the idea on your own, I think it's always good to mention other people who have done it, especially if you know that somebody else has done it, and not ignore them. Because I just think that that's like the most fair thing to do overall. Obviously, when you build something, especially in The Sims 4, there's so many different ways to build things that I think, and I truly stand by the idea that two people could build the exact same structure, because obviously this is a living structure, and it would come out completely different because people pick different colors, different sizes. There's so many variations and different styles that people build in. So it is interesting to me to see people try to build things, the same thing in particular. I've done a challenge on my channel where me and another person built the same house to try to see how they would come out differently, because I do think it's interesting, and no two homes are ever alike. But it's also important to just not try and pretend like you came up with everything all on your own. So although this is a real structure, although I totally did have this idea on my own, upon doing research for like Lego houses in The Sims 4, I did come across somebody who has already built this, and I am absolutely going to link his video down below. Please go check it out. Like I said, I do think it's interesting to watch two people try and build the same exact thing, because they can come out so differently from one another. So I think that it would make a great companion to my video. Go and check out his video, linked down below. I would really appreciate it to give him the support that he deserves on his video as well. But yeah, I wouldn't feel right doing this video without addressing that I acknowledge somebody else has already done this build before. And there's probably more than just the two of us who have done this build before. You could obviously go on the gallery and try and search and see if anybody else has done it before. I did not for this video. I don't typically go on the gallery and search, but whenever I am like making a house that is based off of something in real life, I do try to go on and see if I can find somebody else who's done it, just to not ignore them, you know, and do the right thing. So yeah, please make sure you go check out his video as well. And I'll be interested to see, because I did do this video before I went to go watch his, but I am going to go watch his as soon as I'm done with this voiceover. I'll be interested to see what he did with the interior, because it is called the Lego house, but I couldn't possibly build this and not think to myself that this is a museum. Like, you can't live here, but wouldn't it be so cool if you could? Like, if I had unlimited money and so much free time and nothing in the world mattered to me, I would buy property and just build the most crazy, ridiculous houses. And this is like right up my alley. I love clean, white, modern. And I also love pops of color. So this is exactly the kind of place that I would like to live in. But holy moly, is this place massive. And that's why this video is so long. And I did cut a ton of this out, because it is just layer upon layer. There are so many rooms, and that's another one of the reasons why I did decide to go ahead and make it a museum rather than trying to furnish this place. So a museum kind of gives me the opportunity to maybe space things out a little bit more, make things a little less cluttered, because you wouldn't want to go into a museum where things are very overwhelming and kind of packed together. I almost feel like every museum I've ever been in, they always kind of space everything out so that you can focus really hard on the things that they do have. And then obviously you would walk to the next thing and you would walk to the next thing, but there's usually like a good distance in between each particular item so that you can take everything in separately from one another. And so there is kind of an actual flow to this entire place. So every single room, I have particularly taken items that match the color of the roof in that room. So every room is organized by color. Normally, when you go into a museum, a lot of times things will be organized by artist or by time period. And I just felt like this was a really cool way to incorporate the colors of the building. So every room has like obviously a particular shade of like a color, and I tried to put as many items as I could in each and every single one. So we have sculptures, paintings, different creative like architectural designs that I tried to come up with to make it visually interesting. And then we also have here and there some interactive items. But I'll talk about that a little bit more when we get upstairs. And again, there might be a little bit of jumping around in this video because, like I said, this was getting very, very long. So I did cut some of the things out, especially because after a while, you guys get it. I'm decorating a museum. Everybody knows what a museum looks like. It can only be so interesting watching me put paintings on a wall for so long. But there are things that were a little bit more interesting that I didn't want to cut out. So we have all different stuff from all different kinds of packs. I used the maximum spectrum of stuff for this build. I believe I have debug on. One thing that was really driving me crazy, you guys have no idea. I got to a certain point in this build where I decided that I was going to go on the gallery and I was going to borrow some paintings that other people had done to put and feature in the museum. So normally you can do that no problem. You just go on the gallery, you type in art, photography, wallpaper, rooms, paintings, and you can find custom paintings that people have done in-game and uploaded to the gallery. They're not custom content because you can download them no problem. That's not how the gallery works. You can't download custom content off the gallery. If somebody has used custom content in their build and you don't have that same custom content in your game, when you download that from the gallery, you're not going to suddenly get their custom content. You're only going to get the items that you have placed exactly the way that they have placed them, if you have those items. So what makes paintings different on the gallery is that all of these paintings are possible in The Sims 4. It just takes time sometimes, high skill levels, or a particular like visual reference to get the exact paintings. So instead of having to do that, people have gone ahead and just pre-uploaded them to the gallery for people to download so that you don't have to waste time and you can just get a larger spectrum of stuff to hang on the wall, basically. And so it's a new trick that I've recently started doing and I have never had a problem with it. But I actually think this time around, it's caused this museum to show up as having custom content on the gallery. And I can't get it to fix, so I don't know if it's a bug. I don't know if other people have been having this issue. I don't know if maybe it has nothing to do with the paintings, but I will tell you that I don't use custom content anymore to build anything. And if I do, I'm definitely going to warn people. So this is a custom content free museum, despite the fact that it says otherwise on the gallery, and that drives me so absolutely crazy because it is more difficult for people to find lots when you do use custom content, because you do have to have that little box checked on the far left hand side that says allow custom content, and a lot of people don't use custom content. So if your build accidentally gets marked that way, you're gonna lose downloads. And I worked really hard on this and was really excited to share it with not just you guys, but obviously the community. And I do have a group of people who follow me on the gallery that probably don't subscribe to my YouTube channel. So I was just excited to share it and, you know, see whatever happens. And you're always hoping for that Max's fave, which you'll never get if you have custom content in your game or if you're using it in your build. So unfortunately, this is showing up on the gallery as having CC. I'm going to try to fix it by the time this gets uploaded. Hopefully I am successful in doing so. But if you can't find it or you're having a hard time finding it and you really want to download it, I promise there is no custom content. And just search me by my name, The Alleged Simmer, all one word. Make sure you have that little button tinged on the left-hand side, checked on for allow custom content, and it will be one of my most recent builds to come up. It's also called the Lego House. So I believe if you search the Lego House or hashtag the Lego House, you will probably get it as well, but not if you don't have that box checked, which is so aggravating. But yeah, it is what it is. Hopefully I can fix it soon. I haven't had that happen to me in a really long time. And I do have some custom content pieces in my build and buy mode, but they are just accidentally there and they've slipped through my many processes of trying to clear out all of that stuff, because I did used to build with monstrous amounts of custom content. And it just became overwhelming. People asking me constantly, where did you find that? Where did you find that? Which rightfully so that they're going to ask. And I was expecting that. But it's hard because I do try to answer every single comment that I get. I do try to go out of my way and help people if they're having a problem downloading something off of the gallery, or if they can't find my build. I always try to respond to my comments. And it was consuming a lot of my time trying to get people the proper lists and trying to find people every single individual item. And then Tumblr stopped working and they were deleting my posts without telling me. And so I was linking people to Tumblr and they were coming back like there's nothing there. And this whole mess. So, and now I've kind of got this happy medium in the middle where I don't build with CC anymore. But on my Creative Sim videos, I sometimes link a lot of the stuff that I'm using over on my Pinterest page, or I will link the key items in my description box, depending on what I'm making for Creative Sim and stuff like that. So yeah, many mistakes of being a fresh new YouTuber and not really knowing how to run things and what I was going to do yet. But you live and you learn. So yeah, we have so many rooms down here, and I debated on actually trying to leave that area in the center where people would obviously kind of converge and go to the different rooms blank, but it just didn't feel right. So we are going to fill that center up with some different items, more in the white category, but it felt weird just kind of leaving it all blank. And right now I'm just using it as a placeholder for all of the different items that I knew I was going to be using at one point or another. But yeah, we're going to get to it. I tried to make every single room feel a little bit different and feel interesting to walk into in a different kind of way. That kind of goes away when we go upstairs, and I'll explain why. But I think that when you go to a museum, the best museums are the ones that are just visually interesting from an architectural standpoint. And with how fancy the outside of this building is, how can I possibly ignore everything that the outside of the building is doing on the inside? So I did try to play around with the way that walls were facing and entering a room, and the way that things are positioned in different kinds of boxes and all sorts of stuff all over the place. It might feel a little bit cluttered and random to some people. Some people are really going to get that I was going for colors. And once you kind of zoom away from the whole thing, you will really see how big the colors were important to me. I mean, down to the point where if I put a red item down in the red room and it seemed like the wrong shade of red, I would move it over to a different box that had a similar shade of red on the top. I really tried to stick with colors, if anything. And I was kind of thinking for the first red room, I was having a really hard time with it. This is the point where I was starting to feel a little uninspired, and I'm not sure why. But I did think that it would be cool to have one of those giant keyboards on the ground that you can kind of run over the top of, and every single note that you hit with your feet actually plays whatever note that is on the keyboard. I don't know if any of you have ever experienced one of those, but they do have them. I've seen them in movies. I've seen one in real life, but I didn't go on it. And in some countries, they have implemented this idea on stairs. So when you go up the stairs, it plays different notes. And I think it's to encourage people to use the stairs versus using an elevator. Kind of like a healthy fitness thing. But I did try to incorporate little interactive elements in this museum when I could, because I also think what makes a cool museum cool is those like little interactive bits where you're not just looking at something and saying like, oh, that's neat, and then moving on to the next thing. It's allowing you to actually do something that you probably wouldn't do in your day-to-day or wouldn't find in a different place other than like a really cool museum. And I think of the most when I think of that, and I don't know if that's something that is very like exclusive to the East Coast or maybe just New York where I grew up. Like maybe it's not a thing in other places, but my understanding is that it is. So the most is like a 100% interactive museum, and I've been to it a couple times when I lived in New York State. It's very expensive to get in because there is so much stuff that you can do. So obviously they have to pay for all of that stuff one way or another. And it's very cool. They have like every room is set up obviously under a theme. So there's like a space room, there's a dinosaur room, there's a pirate ship room, there's kind of this big like playground area in the center with all these like ball pits and stuff. And every room is obviously designed for you to learn something, but there's always something interesting to do in every single one of them. Down to like going inside of a little, what is it called? I want to say planetarium, but that would be the wrong word, right? Observatory, where they like sit you down and they play like this light show of all of the stars, and they teach you about constellations, and like the constellations will come up on the ceiling. Very, very cool stuff. Or what else comes to mind is kind of that thing that they've always shown in old cartoons, or at least that's my like remembrance of the idea. The like a giant body where you would go inside of it and like learn about the different body parts inside of people. Have you guys ever seen them do stuff like that? I'm thinking of the episode of Rugrats where Chucky swallows a, is it Chucky? Yeah. Chucky swallows a watermelon seed, and somebody tells him that the watermelon is going to grow inside of his stomach, and he's going to, well, I don't know. That's what they tell him. So he gets really freaked out about it. And Tommy and all of the other people go inside of Chucky while he's sleeping to get the watermelon seed out. And it's low-key kind of informational because they're showing you like the inside of a human body and all of the different parts and stuff like that as they're trying to like make their way through the human body. Or you know what else? Magic School Bus is like a great example. Magic School Bus did that kind of stuff in the show too. But they have stuff like that in real life, and usually you would find that kind of stuff at a museum, is the point that I'm getting at. So that was kind of what I was thinking. And although I would love to do something like that, I was going a little bit more classic. So, you know, we have kind of the elements where you would just walk up to a painting or a pot or a sculpture and say, wow, that's really, really cool. But I also wanted to include some things to do. And my understanding of the actual Lego house is that every single thing inside of the museum is made out of Legos. So if you want to pretend that this entire thing is just Legos and every single thing you're seeing is Legos, go for it. Totally, totally go for it. There was a point in time where I decided, or where I debated, I guess, on attempting to do something like that, where I tried to make everything look like it was made out of Legos. But can you just imagine how overwhelmingly time consuming that would be? I mean, there was even like at the beginning of making this, I thought about not even furnishing the inside because it was just so much already for the outside. And it seemed like really brief for you guys, but there was a lot of me counting tiles and trying color swatches over and over and over again. And there was an entire portion that I cut out where I accidentally made the entire building too many stories. And then I had to individually bring every single story down one. So every box that I had already made had to be redone and moved to the bottom, which I saved you all from having to watch because it was super boring and would have made this video monstrously longer. But yeah, it was taking me forever. So I even debated on furnishing the inside of this and just thought, hey, if people want to furnish it, good on them. But I just kept thinking about it. I've never made a museum before. People really do like to download finished lots. A lot of people don't like to build. Some people claim they can't build. I think anybody can build if you try hard enough. I was not a builder when I started this channel at all. And I go back on some of my first builds that I ever did, and I remember how I thought they were just so good. And now I look back on them and I hate them. I hate them so much. And that's a problem that I have as like a person, because I am an artistic type of person. I took a lot of art classes in school, and I would do that to myself a lot. Like, I would draw something, absolutely love it. Everybody else would tell me how great it was. And the more I looked at it, the longer time passed, the years go by, I would learn to hate it. Even like paintings and drawings that I had done that like won awards, they're in boxes. Like, I just can't even look at them, because I can look at my own stuff and see so many imperfections. But I mean, when you initially do it, you're proud of it, right? So that's how I felt at the beginning of my channel. I was not a builder. I wanted to be. And there was nobody could tell me that I wasn't capable of it, because I think that everybody is capable of being a good builder. And everybody has their own style too, which makes everybody very unique. So I just started my channel as a creative sim type of person, fell into building, loved my first few builds enough myself. Now looking back, I would definitely like to do some renos on some of them, and kind of maybe plan to at a later point in time. I'd love to do a fixer-upper series, and I'm kind of thinking about using a lot of my own personal builds as a fixer-upper series, kind of as like a low-key inspiration to anybody who watches my channel or any other channel, or the comments that I get that tell me you wish you could build. Because you can build. You just have to keep doing it. And the more you do it, the more you're going to learn. And watch other people build, because that has helped me more than anything else ever. I like study people's builds when I'm watching for new creative ways to use the same pieces over and over again. Because we do have like this library of stuff in The Sims that it's broad, but when you're a builder, it starts to feel a lot smaller over time. So you have to be creative enough to find different ways to use all of the stuff in the game in ways that like other people are not thinking of them. And I am so always curious in those little kinds of features. I can give a couple of good examples since we have the time. When I first started, I would have never thought to use cabinets as entertainment sets for like TVs, or you can take a cabinet piece and put it down on the ground and use it as an end table. I would have never thought of that. I learned that from somebody else. Another thing that I love to do is size down lights that get used on the ceiling to get better lighting, because we have this one light in the game, which I've used throughout this entire build, that creates so much better lighting than everything else. And I obviously, like, from a visual aspect, you want to use other stuff. So I learned to use those other lights, but then hide the better light inside of that. So you're still getting the same beautiful kind of white light, but you get to use the other visually appealing lamps. Learned that from somebody else, just from watching other people and studying. And learning to layer carpets to create designs on the floor. Learned that from somebody else. So just watch other people. Watch me. Watch my videos. But watch other people too. And then try it. Implement it yourself. Get going. Don't say you can't do it. Try to make a basic house. Try a starter home. Use photos for reference. Build it once and build it again, and learn all of the different features of the game. It gets easier to control. It gets easier to figure out how to use stuff. BB move objects on is a lifesaver for builders, and I would not suggest building a house otherwise. Definitely make sure you use that cheat. But yeah, don't ever comment on one of my videos and tell me that you can't build, because you absolutely can. I promise you. And you should try. And I mean, if you don't like to build, that's one thing. If you're like, I would much rather just watch other people build and download their stuff, then that is totally fine as well. I accept that as an answer. But getting back to the actual build, we have some different rooms where I have kind of closed them off to give a kind of like a scenic area. And I've seen that in museums from time to time where they will put like different pieces from one particular time period maybe and put them all in kind of this closed off box where they don't want you to touch anything, so it's behind glass, and they create kind of a scene. And that's what I was trying to do with some of the fancy furniture we got from Get Famous to maybe to give a throwback to some different time periods and just show off some old school furniture in that kind of like scene way. And what makes this floor different from the downstairs, you'll probably notice, I've kept the color theme. I'm using a lot of those round carpets, and I want to say we got those from toddler stuff or kids stuff, and they're just like these circular carpets. They come in every single color, which is great. That's definitely, we should have more of that in The Sims 4. Lots of color swatches. To kind of like remark the rooms. And I imagined this floor to be a lot of what I did downstairs. If there was a pot or there was a sculpture, I would mark it off with kind of these dividers or fencing to obviously keep people away from it, because you don't want people touching the stuff in a museum. But I imagined that the second floor is the kind of section where only people who can obviously be trusted right off the bat to not touch anything can go. So there's not so many dividers. There's not so much necessarily like spacing or any like fences or anything like that. It's just an area where maybe only adults are allowed. Some of the paintings are older. Some of the furniture is from thousands of years ago, and they're just expecting that only people who would already know that they are not allowed to touch this stuff are going to come upstairs and be able to look at it and experience it. And I have been in a museum where they do have areas that they expect you are just like smart enough to not touch anything, and you are not allowed to touch anything. You're not even allowed to take photos in some of the museums that I've been in, because they don't want you taking photographs of like these works of art from hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, let alone touch them. So, and they would have, I went in this one museum once with my school for a literature class. No, maybe it was an English class. And the teacher took us to this museum where they literally had bodyguards standing next to certain paintings. And if you got too close, like even if you turned around to look at something else and you're wearing like a large jacket or something like that, the bodyguard would not hesitate to like kind of bump into you and move you out of the way and just be like, you're getting too close. Like that was their job, to stand there all day. Very like stereotypical cartoon style, with sunglasses on and a little earpiece in their ear, and you're not allowed to touch this painting, and that's their job, to make sure that you don't, which I think is so funny and obviously super necessary, because there has been stories in the news I've seen where people fall or purposefully ruin paintings that are hundreds of years old or thousands of years old, worth millions of dollars, like classified priceless, and get ruined because people get too close to stuff. So that's definitely a thing. And so we're kind of just keeping with the color theme, going to different rooms, trying different stuff. And what I did forget to do is I absolutely forgot to record the last floor of this build, and I'm so sorry, but this video is very long as it is, so I don't know how much people wanted to see the upstairs. There was 4 rooms upstairs. If you'd like to see them in person, make sure you go on the gallery and download this and check them out. And that section of the museum is actually the most interactive section, where each room was specifically designed with something inside of it that people could do. So one has a ball pit inside of it, one has a maze, one has kind of an obstacle course, and one is an aquarium with like lots of fish and fish tanks where people can kind of go and look at all the different stuff. So that's kind of how I feel that a Lego museum would be in general anyway. Like most things would probably be very interactive, very children orientated, to make it fun for the kids and make parents actually want to bring their kids there. So that's what the last floor looks like. You can get to all of the different levels of this build. The way that the stairs are designed, you can get to the very top of the build, which is meant to look like an actual Lego, and the little prongs that I use to make the actual circle pieces of it are fish tanks from My First Pet Stuff. So that's pretty much the end of the build, you guys, and that was a long one. So if you stuck with me this long, thank you so much. I worked so hard on this, and I really appreciate you watching the entire video, and I hope you enjoyed. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Stick around for the screenshots, because I'm actually including some in this build, and I don't know what else I have to say. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that little bell icon below to turn on post notifications so you can get updated every single time I post, and I will talk to you all in the next one.